school. I was talking about in another school, and the experience I was describing was, and I'm sure I would have said it to you possibly last year, I was doing some study skills workshops in a school in October, and I'd asked the students to list down some subjects they were going to be examined in a few weeks' time, and words that went with with that subject, words they'd use to show their knowledge. And some of the students hadn't actually written down any words. They couldn't think of any vocabulary, say, that they would use to show what they knew about breathing and respiration, or things like that. There were no words. They didn't say anything. They couldn't remember any words they'd used. Now, when I met with the staff in that school later that day, they said, "Oh, how did it all go?" And I said, "Well, there are kids in the school who really have been here for 6 years and still haven't learnt the power of vocabulary. They still haven't learnt how to use words to show their knowledge." And we talked about it at that school, and I was mentioning it at another school. And the teachers at this second school said, "Are you saying that we're poor teachers?" And I felt at that moment chaos. I saw chaos coming up in front of me. And what could I say? All I could say was, look, the kids couldn't do it. I'm not saying anyone didn't teach them. All I'm saying is that the pairs of shoes sitting in that context couldn't do it. Now, if you want to say the teachers didn't teach them, you say that. All I'm saying is that can you see how the student data? Bringing the chaos back to student performance, because that's really all we're interested in. We can't go back and change whether or not teachers taught them or not. All we can do is to make sure that the students do have that knowledge, that they do have the necessary knowledge. So in terms of chaos in teaching, I would keep the focus on learning. The third aspect that we've talked about, and I think we've really done this notion of having a systematic set of learning opportunities. We've raised that. Now, the question is, how might you go about building those into your school culture? Remember, we talked about having the teachers learn how to plan through a lesson, to see where they'd fit the strategies in, how they'd go about linking it, linking their ideas with practicing them first, putting them into actions, and then trying them out. We talked about a whole lot of professional learning opportunities. This part of the culture says, to what extent can you slot each of those into the culture? Because each of those different types of learning activities is going to give you another aspect of the learning. The business of really recognising and valuing teachers' knowledge. Really allowing teachers who've had a range of experiences to really share their experiences, and then to discuss how they're fitting with where you're wanting to go. If we're talking about the high reliability strategies, how do other experiences fit with them? The chances are most things will. Most of the other literacy programs that are being done, they will. And the only difference between the high reliability strategies and a lot of the other programs is that the other programs often focus on teaching, and we're focusing on learning. We're really saying these are the things a reader needs to learn to do, whereas a lot of them are saying these are the things I need to do to teach. And sometimes they don't match. So really helping teachers see the value of their past experiences. And whenever you're talking about past experiences, I'd be also having the discussion about what did the students learn. When people are talking about their experiences, what and how did the students learn? So bringing it back to a discussion about learning again. Is this all right? So when people are, when you're talking with your colleagues, when you're looking at building this culture, building this climate, again, I'd be bringing the experiences back to learning. And you're going to be on a winner every time if you do that. Encouraging innovative thinking, we've already talked about that. That's a really important aspect. Building or fostering collaboration, again, really, really important. allowing your colleagues to learn in multiple ways is also important. We've talked about building group knowledge. And you can see what I've done in your notes is given you just a few more hints for you to follow up and pursue as you build the culture. Really fostering, or we've talked about fostering group knowledge. Making sure the group is learning how to learn. Making sure the group is actually being aware of how they can learn, and so that next time they have to learn something, they'll be able to do it much more easily. And we've also talked about trust. In fact, that's been a really important aspect of our discussion today. How we actually do trust. We do it and we do respect. And if we can do that, then we'll be able to run with the professional learning much more effectively. I'm going to skip through the next few slides because I've just described how you might use your knowledge in different ways. And I'd just like to come to this one. I think it's slide 34, slide 35. And I would just like to show you what I've got here, because we're not going to have time to work through it. And we then want to look at pooling and planning, where we're going to use our knowledge. What I'm saying here is, and this is really meant to be a blueprint for putting in place the professional learning. And I'm looking at what it is that the school leadership team need to do in order to learn about literacy. What the individual teacher needs to learn, what the professional learning team needs to learn, and what you might need to do as a leader of professional learning. So I've got these 4 columns, and you'll see there are activities in each of for each of those different functions in terms of different aspects of the learning. And so if we're looking at framing up a challenge for engaging in literacy learning, what will the school leadership team actually do when it has been challenged for engaging in